Here's the new Star Wars Death Star space station that you put together. Action figures each sold separately.
Darth Vader's firing a laser cannon. It's been hit. He's afterload. Take the elevator. Hurry. Now cross the light bridge. You won't escape me. Jump, Luke. Oh, no. The trash compactor. There's a trash monster. The wall's closing. Save.
Kenner's new Star Wars Death Star space station. Action figures each sold separately.
Knick-Knack's Plastic Planet. With your host, it's Knick-Knack! Hey, welcome back to the Plastic Planet. I am your host, Knick-Knack, and as you can see behind me are two iconic playsets from the vintage Kenner Star Wars line. Now, both of these playsets I did not have in my collection previously, or in my childhood for that matter. So getting both of these this week kind of made it a blockbuster week around here in the Plastic Planet, as these two, especially the one directly behind me, the Death Star from 1978, was a coveted piece for me. I have wanted this damn thing since I was a kid. And so I am so excited to kind of show you guys the ins and outs of these playsets. Now, hey, it was eBay, so and these things are, this is almost a 40-year-old piece behind me. This thing is, pushing 35 years old as well. So both of these pieces are not in the best condition. And, I may be doing some restoration on both of them in the coming weeks or months. But as they are right now, they're still very displayable and really enjoyable. And so I'm going to show you guys the ins and outs of these two playsets first. And then, I thought, why not show you my other vintage playsets as well? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of my old Kenner vintage playsets and rate them on two different factors. One, displayability, and two, playability. It's going to be awesome. So let's just get to it right now, all right? Alrighty, so now here we are taking a look at the 1978 Kenner Star Wars Death Star playset. And I just gotta tell you, the one thing that gets me so super juiced about Kenner Star Wars playsets isn't the playsets themselves. No, it's actually how awesome these 3 3/4 inch vintage figures look inside of the playsets. I mean, certain things have their natural habitats. I mean, a bear belongs in the forest, and a raccoon belongs in the dumpster. Just like those, these figures belong in these playsets. This is where they were born to be, and God, they look so freaking good inside of them. I just cannot get over that. I mean, sure, you know what, having a nice display on a wall is great, and I can understand the appeal there, lining them up like the back of the card backs from back in the day. But I don't know, for my dollar, I'd rather put them in a playset, like a diorama-like setting, just like this, and just enjoy the holy hell out of them, because to me, this is just as good as it gets for me, vintage-wise. Just look at this scene in front of you. Doesn't that just take you back? Isn't that just like calm comfort food? Isn't that just like listening to Steve Winwood's Finer Things on repeat over and over again? It's just amazing looking. I just am in love with this, guys. And this Death Star playset I have wanted since I was 5 years old. I haven't actually seen one in person since then. And I gotta tell you, it was funny when I opened it up in the box and put it together. The guy, kind of packed it pretty nice for me, and I put it all together. I mean, the last time I saw one of these things, I thought it was the size of a dresser. I thought it was so huge. Of course, I've gotten a lot bigger since I was 5 years old, so obviously it's considerably smaller, but wow, it's just amazing looking at it. I just am just so tickled pink about owning this thing. So look, on a scale of displayability, this thing gets up probably a 5 out of 5 for me. Because, again, these action figures just look amazing in this thing. I totally dig it. It's got the look, it's got so much nice look of the Death Star, with the Death Star, wall paneling in there, but it's got enough of the items that, remind you that this is a toy from the 1970s. I just absolutely love this piece so much. Now, from a playability standpoint, unfortunately, I only played with this thing once as a little kid, and I was so little that I can hardly remember. So this obviously is not from the perspective of a young child that remembers this piece fondly and well. But But I will say, I have to say that there's so many of the gimmicks on this thing are so fun. I mean, the trap door here, it opens up, that goes into the trash compactor, the bridge that comes across, the elevator that goes up and down. I mean, this thing is great. I mean, it's got a working elevator that goes up to all the floors, and it will ratchet in there. Mine doesn't because it's kind of old, but it will ratchet into each floor. That's awesome. And then you can, of course, recreate Obi-Wan on the catwalk over here, deactivating the tractor beam. Getting a lot of light glare there. Sorry, guys. But absolutely awesome. Of course, the gunner station is cool, and it does pop off. Mine, the spring in mine isn't working anymore. I'm cutting some slack here. This is a 40-year-old toy, and this thing was played with extensively at some point, I can tell. This is someone's memories all over this thing, and I can tell they're very fond memories at that. But I gotta say, I would have to give this thing a 4 out of 5 in playability. Oh, and the trash compactor, of course, with the door, with the hinge on the screw on the door that closes it shut, and the foam. I did get some repo foam for this, repro foam. So obviously the foam isn't original. I don't think you'd want the original foam after 40 years. I would think it'd be pretty well gone at this point. But anyway, so yeah, I got to give this a 4 out of 5 on playability. Absolutely awesome piece. Alrighty, moving on to this other piece that I got this week. This, of course, is the Kenner Return of the Jedi Collection Ewok Village from 1983. And the piece I got, this particular piece that I have, is missing a couple items. It's missing the spit that goes across the fire here. The rope is not the original rope. The previous owner, while well-intentioned, did try to get a more realistic-looking rope on here as opposed to the black rope that it comes with. You know, hey, that's cool. You know, it still looks really good displayed. I have no issues there at all. I am missing the net. The net that it's supposed to come with is pretty well deteriorated. I'm not even going to put it under here because it's pretty far gone. But other than that, the set looks really nice, and it does display really well. All the railings are there and intact. You know, the figures look great on it. I'm digging that a lot. I do remember this piece fondly as well. I had a friend down the street when I was a little older in the 3rd grade that had this, and we would play for hours in his backyard with it. It was fun, fun, fun. I do remember that. So there was a lot of playability here. You know, there's a lot of little nooks and crannies and holes you can put figures into the huts and everywhere. It's a fun piece, so I do remember that. So anyway, from a display standpoint, this still looks fantastic, and I got to give this, I would say a 3.5 out of 5 for display ability. Just awesome. Ironically, the better piece actually would have been Kenner. As toy gurus know, Kenner repurposed this playset for the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves line that came out several years later, and they reused the same mold of the playset, but they gave it the top of the trees here a little bit of a canopy. So there actually was some leaves and stuff that came out from the top of these trees, and so it actually kind of looks a little better than the Return of the Jedi version. So, you know, from a display standpoint, I still got to give it 3.5 stars. Still looks good. Yeah, it's funny. The later version of this, which isn't Star Wars related, actually does look a little better, I think. But this is still awesome, obviously. And from a play standpoint, you know, I did play with this as a kid, although it wasn't mine. I remember my friend having it and playing for hours in his backyard with it. So, and it's got to be at least a 4 out of 5 because we played with this thing for hours and hours and hours, endless scenarios and whatnot. So really, really fun. But anyway, doesn't that look great? I am digging this set a lot. I'm not sure where I'm going to put either one of these play sets for right now because they're very big, very cumbersome, and they take up a lot of space. I'm either going to have to clear up some space in my archive room and down in the basement or up here in the Plastic Planet. I am not sure yet, but nevertheless, looking so amazingly awesome. Alrighty, so here's a piece you may have seen in my other videos. It's just down below my detolfs here. And this, is, of course, is the vintage Empire Strikes Back Rebel Turret and Probot set, and I don't know, I can't remember the actual official name of this. I should have looked it up before I started the video, but I'm lazy. But that's okay. It looks really awesome. I've enjoyed this a lot. I've actually cleaned it up a little recently so that white kind of pops a little more, but still, it looks really nice with all those figures down there. The Wampa and the Tauntauns obviously are extras. They didn't come with the piece, as you all know. Neither do the figures. Hell, no figures came with any of these playsets, as I recall, which was kind of a bummer on Kenner's part, but nevertheless, still, I mean, is that not the way to display action figures? I really, really think so. I dig this a lot. One thing that always stood out with me, especially with these snow play sets that Kenner did back in 1980 or 1981, whenever these happened to come out, was whoever sculpted these did such a fine job of sculpting the snow and the ice on here. It looks really good, and it even still holds up to today. Not that toy makers make a lot of play sets today, because they don't, which is a detriment to them, I think. But you know, whoever sculpted this did such a really, really, really nice job. I can't say enough about how good that looks. Now, I've always been impressed with that. I recently watched that Netflix original docu-series, The Toys That Made Us, and in the first episode they cover Star Wars, and they talk to some of the original sculptors on these items. And it's just amazing to see the faces behind these people were artisans basically. So I can't recommend that series enough. If you're interested in this sort of thing, if you haven't already watched it, really, really good. But anyway, back to this set. Really awesome. Display ability, this is a 5 out of 5 for me. It just looks awesome with those figures. From a play standpoint, I would dock it considerably lower, maybe a 2.5 out of 5. As a kid, I think you'd get kind of bored. It's just kind of, it's a little static. The Probot's cool, but it only kind of sticks on that pole. I don't imagine kids would leave it on that pole very long. I think a lot of the Probots, the kids that had this set probably lost their Probot or, lost the legs to it. I think that was probably a commonality. The turret itself is pretty nice as well. But again, I don't know. I just don't see, this just doesn't seem like something kids would play with a lot. It's just more of a place to put your figures as opposed to play with them, I think. Of course I didn't have this particular set as a kid. This was one I picked up on eBay a couple years back. So this is not one of mine from my childhood. So I don't know. Hey, if you did have this figure, this particular set, and you played with it all the time, and you feel otherwise, let me know in the comments section below. Maybe I'm off base on this, but to me this just doesn't feel like a set that just feels like something you'd initially have your figures on, and then you'd eventually abandon the play set and go off and do something else with your figures. Just my opinion, though, based on how, my play habits as a kid, as I remember them anyway. So, yeah, I would say 2.5 out of 5 on playability here. Alrighty, another playset that dwells on my bottom shelf here is the Land of the Jawas playset. I believe this was another one from 1978. The Jawa, the Dewback, and the Stormtrooper were sold separately. However, the Escape Pod and the cardboard Sandcrawler came with this set. Other than that, I'm going to move the Dewback out of there so you can see it better. Other than that, that is all you get there. Now, I don't know. From display standpoint, your figures do look pretty good on that. As an adult collector, there's a lot I appreciate here. I dig the cardboard Sandcrawler as an adult collector. And the Escape Pod's a nice touch, and it's got the nice Sandcrawler tracks here that run across here. And and the cave is kind of cool. It looks like the little cave that R2 was hiding in when Obi-Wan Kenobi saved Luke from the Tusken Raiders. So that's kind of cool. Now, so from a display standpoint, I would give this, I don't know, 3 stars out of 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 4, maybe 2.5 out of 4. Yeah, it's because your figures look pretty damn good on there. That Jawa looks nice there. So I would say that. Now, from a playability standpoint, I'd give this a 1, maybe a 1 out of 5. For starters, that's like I said, that Sandcrawler is cardboard, which is great to display figures in front of, but not so great to play with. In fact, I'm not even sure how in the hell that cardboard is still even around. This is this piece turns 40 years old this year, and that is some old ass cardboard just sitting there eating itself in its own acids. Even back in 1978, I can't imagine it being very fun. There's a little, as you can see, there's a little platform there, and you can slide a figure up into the cardboard, which is fine, I guess. But, you can't roll that Sandcrawler anywhere. That Sandcrawler's not a toy. It's a piece of cardboard. You take it outside, it's going to get wrecked. So yeah, again, there's really like almost zero playability here outside of the escape pod, which is nice. And maybe you can stick R2 in that little cave, or R5D4 in that little cave. So anyway, there's this little knob here, and you turn it, and you can allegedly make R2 fall over from the Jawa shooting him. Let's see if it even still works. Yeah, kinda. So there is that. I guess that's a tiny play gimmick, but overall, this thing is pretty pathetic to play with. I went over to a friend's house one afternoon, way back in the early '80s, and he happened to have this set. And I think even at that point, his Sandcrawler was long trashed, so he just had the base here in the escape pod. And I'd actually never seen this piece before, but I remember being kind of intrigued because I'd never actually seen it. But I mean, again, there is no long-term playability option here. Alrighty, and you know, one of the all-stars, in my opinion, of vintage Star Wars playsets is this 1981 Yoda's Hut from the Empire Strikes Back collection. Now, this thing was just off the hook awesome, and the reason for that, for me at least, and the big selling factor for me for this piece was the quicksand. Now, in full disclosure, this quicksand here is actually reproduction quicksand, and this is not the original item I had as a child. This is one I picked up at a toy convention a few years back, because the one I had as a child had gotten just so beyond repair. I actually tossed it, and I kind of regretted tossing it because I probably could have restored it, but I didn't have the patience for that sort of thing back, you know, couple years back. So anyway, I picked this one up at a toy fair, and the guy did tell me that was reproduction quicksand, which is okay because it's really nice. It's very tight and it displays real nice. As you can see, R2 fits in there like a champ. Looks really good. I have no issue with that whatsoever. It's just to restore the piece, and it's obviously reproduction because the original was much softer, as I recall. This is a little more tighter, and it looks really good to display like this. So anyway, but yeah, this particular piece is missing a few items. It's missing the crates that it came with that you'd put on these little stems here, and then you'd push down the rock and Luke would levitate them. So that was a nice kind of cool play feature, I guess. It's missing, there's a hook, or a little hook that comes out from this slit here in the hut, and then behind it there was a handle, and then you could put Luke into like a handstand, and that was kind of cool. So, you know, that was awesome. And then of course you'd have Yoda up there training him, which was cool. And then of course the back side of it was to, you know, to redepict Luke's day at the cave here and his duel with the Phantom Vader in Empire Strikes Back. And it came with these little sliders that you could have him duel Vader on. And, you know, this is the one that's still intact. So I don't know. I remember not being real high on this play feature when I was a kid. But nevertheless, that was an option, I guess. Again, you know, from a play standpoint, this thing was just the knees bees, and it was because of that quicksand mainly. But I played with this thing for hours and hours and hours. So I would give this thing a 4 out of 4 or 5 out of 5, whatever. I forget what my top line is. I kind of need to go back and check that as I continue this video. But anyway, I'd give this tops for playability. For displayability, I'd also give it near tops too. And another big reason for that is, I mean, look at the detail on this. I was talking about the sculptors that worked for Kenner back in the 80s earlier in this video, and this piece was just an all-star piece. It's too bad they couldn't put more color into it because the detail is amazing. You can see, you know, little lizards in it and all the weeds and you know, all the swamp fauna and flora that's all over this thing, and it looks absolutely awesome. And the HUD itself is nice. It's very textured. Looks really good, especially, you know, for an early 80s toy. This thing is just top notch in my opinion, and that is why it would be near the top of my list as far as play sets go. Again, you know, playability, I give this thing, you know, a 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4. And displayability, again, probably a 4 out of 4 as well, because this thing is awesome. Alrighty, so the final playset we're going to be taking a look at tonight is the Jabba the Hutt playset from 1983. Now, there's always been some debate about whether this is a playset or an action figure, and I'm going to land on the side firmly that it is a playset. For the most obvious reason, because it said on the box, it was the Jabba the Hutt playset. And no, it didn't come on a card back, and it wasn't considered one of the original 93 or whatever, how many vintage action figures there were in the original line between 1977 and 1985. So we're going with the fact that this is indeed a playset, and what a playset it is. First of all, I want to say, I don't even know in this date of 2018 whether or not there has been a better molded Jabba the Hutt in 3 3/4 inch scale than this one. I'm not sure there has been yet. This figure looks amazingly awesome, and you know, outside of the color, which is pretty kind of bland and not very film accurate, the figure looks great. Even the eyes have that nice kind of orangish red hue to them, which I absolutely dig. The throne itself it looks amazingly awesome as well. Now this figure I've kind of hodgepodged from my childhood Jabba the Hutt playset. Now the throne itself is from my childhood. This is my original throne, as well as the Salacious Crumb. Now over the years, my arm on my Jabba broke off, and I was never, and then I lost the arm, so I was never, you know, able to repair it. So I did actually order a new Jabba off eBay, as well as the hookah set here. I needed to get that off eBay, as I kind of misplaced that as well. So part of this has been you know, hodgepodge from eBay, and part of this is from my original childhood collection. Now, another thing that makes this playset so fun and makes the playability, you know, for me, a 4 out of 4, is if you take Jabba off the throne here, and I'm going to move Salacious as well, and open it up. I mean, look at how like cool this is in here. And just, I remember as a kid just being like almost kind of shocked at this, and much like when I got my Amanaman or Headhunter, you know, that figure had the pike with the decapitated decomposing, you know, heads on it. Well, this thing's got all these nasty things underneath Jabba's butt. I mean, we've got a decomposing corpse in there. We've got some kind of giant iguana. We've got rats. I mean, this thing is gross. And like I said about the Yoda hut, it is a damn shame that they didn't, you know, put some more color into this mold, because they could have really fleshed this out more and made it look even better. And it's a shame because the mold itself is so awesome. I mean, my sister and I used to kind of pretend that the rats and the lizard ate Jabba's poop when he'd take a big dump in there, and that's what they lived off of. I mean, it kind of lent itself to some disgusting, gross 8-year-old play options, which is, you know, that's just awesome, right? That's great. That's what this is all about. So anyway, this figure is awesome. This playset, I should say, is awesome. Like I said, 4 out of 4 for playability. And you know what? The display, just because of how great this mold still looks, and even Salacious Crumb looks good, the throne looks good, everything about it, 4 out of 4 for displayability and 4 out of 4 for playability. What a set. Man, wasn't this a fun episode? I feel like it was 1983 all over again, and you guys were hanging out at my house. We're playing with our vintage Star Wars playsets, but the bad news is your mom just called and you gotta get your ass home because it's meatloaf night. Oh, that's gonna suck, man. But we had such a fun day together, didn't we? Didn't we, Wicket? Yeah. F yeah, we did. F yeah, we did. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me on the Plastic Planet. And once again, I just gotta tell you guys, we just went over 100 subscribers this week. That's great. We're growing this channel from a small channel into like a small, medium-sized channel, and that's awesome. And I can't thank you guys enough for your support. And I can't thank my new subscribers. You know, hey, welcome to the Plastic Planet. We have a lot of fun here. And to my old subscribers and people who've been here with me since the beginning and have been providing me with feedback and kind comments, thank you guys so much for that as well. So anyway, till next time, you guys, we're going to be hanging out and having a great time. Action. Action. It's pretty good. Action. Oh! And action. That's good, that's good.
Here's the new Star Wars Death Star space station that you put together. Action figures each sold separately.
Darth Vader's firing a laser cannon. It's been hit. He's after Luke. Take the elevator. Hurry. Now cross the light bridge. You won't escape me. Jump, Luke. Oh, no. The trash compactor. There's a trash monster. The wall's closing. Save.
Kenner's new Star Wars Death Star space station. Action figures each sold separately.
So yub yub, assholes!